to them because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning and in the midst of COVID?
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hello and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. Thank you for joining us tonight. So glad to see you. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. And you?
Fine. Well, I see Miss Maurice, you looking all sexy tonight. Okay. Well, we were supposed to be interviewing our guest, Isis McIntosh Green tonight. She was a candidate for city council, but she hasn't joined us, been able to join us yet. But we're going to continue on because we got some burning hot topics to talk about. And what we wanted to start with is, ladies, let me tell you, I was listening to this guy. Talking. He was very, very upset. So he was telling about he had been dating this lady for 10 years. She has a daughter. So the father has not been in the daughter's life. He's in and out of the life, in and out. You know, he don't really do that much for the daughter or whatever. But he helped took care of the daughter, helped pay for her college tuition. He bought her a car while she was in college and everything.
Oh, so he was her real father.
No, he is the stepfather. Well, even though
he was the real father,
married, he's still the stepfather, but it's the
right.
boyfriend.
He was a real daddy.
And well, the sugar daddy. What do you want to call it?
No, it's a regular daddy. You know, a father can meet you, but that don't mean he takes care of you. Daddy takes care of you.
If you were dating somebody, you take on their kids when they're young and help raise them. You're like a father's father.
Right. Your daddy.
You don't have to be blood.
Not a sugar daddy, a regular daddy.
Yeah. So what he did was, so he took on, helped take care of the young lady and everything. He, sent her to college, helped get her a car and everything. Now she's getting married. So, the mother, of course, didn't have all the money to pay for no wedding. So he agreed to pay for the wedding, right? So now he's
nice.
Now he says that he wanted to put 20 of his family guests on there.
He's doing the most, but okay.
The girlfriend is telling him, well, they have too many people already in that, they don't have room to put his on, right?
Right.
So, but if anybody say they're not coming in, he's going to put it on.
Oh, so they're on the standby list. They're on the standby list.
Yeah, they're at the airport. Gotcha.
So now he's pissed off about that, right? So now he's really, really angry. So now they had a little dinner. You know how you have the dinner where the families get together, kind of get to know each other, whatever.
Right.
So the daughter stood up and said, I asked my father to walk me down the aisle.
Her stepfather.
No, her father.
Her biological father to walk
her
down.
Deadbeat?
Yeah. So now he's upset because he's done all of this stuff for the young lady. He's been there for her. And now you're going to ask your real father to walk you down the aisle.
The deadbeat.
But he's really upset and everything. Right?
She can have them both walk her down the aisle, though.
No,
he said, well, okay, then. So if it's going to be like that, then he's pulling his money back and he's not paying for no wedding.
Wait a minute,
so
I have some.
You get the father to pay for the wedding.
The
girlfriend and the daughter is upset because now they can't afford to pay for no wedding.
Well, let me tell you something.
They mad with him because now they asking him, well, what they gonna do because they can't
actually deadbeat daddy.
Let me tell you something. I have some reservations and concern about his role 10 years ago. And I say that because what was the relationship with him and the mother 10 years ago for her not to have a dime today to contribute to her daughter's wedding, right? My thing is, they did not think eventually she would want to get married. And they put money away. Did they plan for it? It's a couple of, I look at a little couple, side eyes.
Right.
This. Because if she doesn't have any money now, and then she's kind of agreeing and saying, well, there's not enough money, it's not enough room for your family, and he's paying for it, and you normally pay per plate, and who's eating?
Right.
Is he being used? I think he's just being used.
It sounds like it.
That's why he was saying, like, okay, so what am I in? So what if I've been on
the bank?
The bank.
Exactly. I've seen him at. You know, brother. Right?
You've been the bank of daddy.
Yeah, but for them to even have the nerve to get angry with him because he's pulling out the money.
No,
when you treated him.
But you know what, Lottie? He shouldn't just pull out the money. He'd pull out the driveway and keep it moving.
Listen, he needs to get his car back.
That's what he
all of
did.
that.
That's what he did.
Absolutely.
That's what he did. He
Absolutely.
pulled out, and there's no longer the bank. The bank is not there.
Exactly.
Oh, I understand our guest has arrived. Our guest has arrived, so we're going to bring our guest on for tonight.
Great.
Hello, Miss Ice.
Welcome.
Nice and pink.
How you doing?
For having me. Look, I was over here like, wait, so who gets the father-daughter dance?
Not the deadbeat.
There's no father-daughter dance is over.
No longer bank. Well, see, that's what you get when you don't appreciate somebody else.
Exactly. He's been used for the last 10 years.
Whatever it is.
They should have kept using him.
You made it. We're so excited you were able to make it. So hey, Miss Isis McIntosh Green. Now you were running you the candidate for City Council for District 41. So first, just briefly tell us who you are and what made you decide now you want to go for 41, and how you're going to change 41 from what the previous person was doing.
Well, thank you, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Isis McIntosh Green, and you heard it correct. I am running for New York City Council for District 41, which includes the communities of Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, Ocean Hill, East Flatbush, and parts of Crown Heights. One of the big things is I was born in Bed-Stuy, raised in Brownsville, in Van Dyke houses to be exact, looking to get more resources in our community. I woke up one day and got bit by the bug, as they'll say. But I didn't wake up and just decide to get into this work. It's something that I've been doing for the last, at this point, 8 to 10 years. I've had the opportunity more recently to serve as chief of staff to Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. I've worked in the New York State Senate under Senator Toby Ann Stavisky. I've had the opportunity to intern for Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Clinton Foundation. So I've always wanted to be able to affect positive change from the policy standpoint. And that was the place where I kind of thought that I would stay, is on the policy side, affecting issues regarding bail reform and criminal justice reform, issues regarding the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, issues regarding affordable home ownership. And I've always been asked over the years of, are you going to run for office, or do you have political ambitions? And my questions, my responses have kind of been like, well, as long as the work is getting done, I'm fine. And for me, the calls that our community has been not getting answered is really the reason why I've decided to jump into the race of District 41. We are in a crisis right now. We're in a housing crisis where, as someone who grew up in NYCHA, I understand that we are suffering with dilapidated housing stock and no real solution of how that's going to affect this generation. We talk a lot about building, but then you start to question of building for whom and what is actual affordable for the people who live in those communities and the type of careers that they work. I'm interested in being able to help upskill our workforce. We have 5 high schools in our district, from Brooklyn Collegiate, which I helped organize around even when they were on the states and the cities list, and in 2 actual consecutive years to get closed, to make sure that they not only were able to stay open, but also had the early college resources for those students that, we wanted to be able to ensure that they weren't just graduating with a high school diploma, but were being actually pipelined into higher education and actual careers. I think that's something that gets overlooked often, and a lot of the communities that we're kind of sandwiched between, you can't purchase a house for under $1 million. And we are in the last area where that is really and truly possible, with city plots and city lots, that we want to say, how do we get our fair share while prioritizing the people who are here? And that's
Isis, not cutting you off, but we want to get in as much as we can. Now that you're on the housing situation, because that's a main concern now, because you have the developers coming in. They are building all kinds of tall buildings, short buildings, square, whatever. So I'm saying, now you have all these people that need housing. You have people in the shelter that needs to get out of the shelter. And then more people are coming in. So those people will never get out of the shelter. But I'm saying now, when the developers come into the area like that, and use it. I'm sure the land must be coming from the city or wherever, how they get all of this land. That's something. How now are you going to negotiate that when they build housing, that they build affordable housing so people can afford to move into those buildings? Because if you just keep building high rises and expensive building with $3,000 rent and $4,000 rent, how would people ever get in an apartment? I mean, just a simple apartment with one bedroom or two bedrooms.
Anything.
I mean, I like to tell you that my family, back when I was a teenager, we benefited from when they were building those homes out. We were the second set of I guess houses built, and we lived on those. We bought a house on Linden between I can't remember, but it's all right. Now they're not building houses. I like to tell you right now, I would love to be able to buy something, but when I look in certain areas where I want to live, or even the area that I live, the house on my block is $2.6 million. An apartment anywhere near a neighborhood that I would even want to live with that has a really good school system, it's $3,000 for the mortgage, plus the HOA. That's not even including that. It's like, who is it affordable for? Because technically I'm not I don't qualify for any sort of aid because I work. So of the working class people, we are kind of pigeonholed out of being able to live that dream, that American dream, having your piece of the pie. And, a lot of us are leaving, and I'm also considering leaving myself, because at the end of the day, what they're asking me to pay, I would have to sell drugs for. And I mean that white powder.
Well, that's part of the gentrification that's going on.
Right.
And they actually, what they're doing is that the city is kind of selling out New Yorkers. Right,
they are absolutely
they're selling them. They're selling these developers these high-rise incentives. They have tax incentives. What is affordable housing? Who really knows what it is? Some communities are being rezoned into lower marginalized communities to bring up the AMI, was the annual mean income. So what they're doing is really even blocking out the people that's living in those communities. They relocated them. They relocated them out of state. They relocated them to FEMA camps. And the thing is, they're getting incentives. So when you have certain communities, when you say, well, we want to displace 50,000 people to bring in 25,000. They said, well, why? Just bring in 25,000. No, because the people they're bringing in is not looking like you. So this is some of the issues that they have, and people don't realize when they start tree lining your block, paving the roads, putting bike racks, they think this is more glorification.
It's not for us.
It is not for the people that's there. When you look at these communities and what it was before many years ago, you have a lot of people that's not looking like us were the original people to some degree in this community. So when you had Sandy and these flooding and all these other mechanisms of waterways, now people say, you know what, we want these communities back. And the only way to push these people out is with money.
To price them out.
It's with money.
You know what I mean? Because when we moved here, we migrated here from Trinidad in 1991. I've been in this pretty much, I could walk the vicinity of the place where we first lived to my mother's house to my current apartment.
Allison, you're going to have to hold that thought. We got to take a break and we'll be right back.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
If you are just joining us, we are talking to Isis McIntosh Green, who's a candidate for city council. Allison, I'll get back to you, but I want Isis to tell us about her plan for housing, since we were talking about housing. Your plan for District 41. What is your plan to help the district over there about housing, crime, inflation? I mean, we just got so much going on. We don't even know where to begin, but
Right.
main thing.
Well, thank you so much. And I will say that it has to be really a double agenda. You have the agenda of how do we address housing concerns, get people a roof over their head as quickly as possible, and then what is the plan over the next few years, whether it be capital repairs to the housing stock that we already have. When I moved out of Van Dyke houses 3 years ago, the one thing I noticed is when I went door knocking is my apartment is still vacant. And there are a lot of vacant NYCHA apartments that need to be prioritized and utilized for people that are homeless in our areas and in our community. Also, there are also proposals that have been going around New York City. We've seen it in New York with Community Board 5, where people are actually able, the homeowner is able to rent their garden level or basement units that are already finished and has windows to be able to rent that out. In a lot of other areas, that's actually not considered substantial housing. And so people can't access vouchers there or anything. That will be very helpful to the homeowner, as well as being helpful to identify places right now that we can begin to occupy. Then there's also building. We can't ignore that we need to build more affordable housing. It's a question of who are we building the affordable housing for? So when I'm going to seniors and seeing that seniors are being evicted left and right and may not have the best handle on the legal system on when they actually have to vacate the property or if they're being pushed out, we need a lot more senior housing in our communities. And that has to come with the necessary resources. I don't really want to continue to see thousands of people in 1 or 2 square blocks without the necessary resources, like redoing the playground, like making sure the library is actually up and running since the pandemic. So there's a lot more that we have to do from an urban planning perspective, besides just saying, hey, let's add 200 units on this block.
Okay,
Now, what about crime?
I just wanted to touch on a couple of things you mentioned. When you mentioned, for one thing, that you say you moved out and your apartment is still vacant. A lot of the housing development nitures are selling these apartments. So that's another thing on the back burner that they have on the side. They're selling the apartment. Number two, they changed the regulation, the guidelines for rent stabilization. So now they're not getting, they're able to get more percentage of the rent and increase the leases, the rent amount. And in terms of Community 5, Board 5, yes, they did have some kind of programs where older people or people who had basements were being being regulated so they can be rented. But there's still some stipulations to that, because then that will happen. You don't fall into the guidelines. Oh, now they found out your basement is rented. Now you have some penalties and other legalities that attach to that. And then one thing that the city did do, they allowed vouchers, candidates of vouchers to rent rooms. But what they did was that they can rent rooms. So if you have a regular apartment, a 2-family house, you have 3 bedrooms on top and 2 on the bottom. Now you rent out 3 bedrooms on the top. Now that technically, if you have to go to court to evict someone, that's technically now a 3-family apartment on top. So now the 3 rooms upstairs and 2 rooms downstairs now makes it 5 families. Now that changes the dynamics of a 2-family into now rent stabilized by law. So when you have these incentives, they're not matching up with the legal system when you go to court. Because see, now the court is deeming it as an individual apartment, as an individual family. So it changes dynamics of that the housing development, of that housing, the 2-family home.
Well, I'm definitely happy you brought that up, because it's truly affecting my generation like never before, with the warehousing of individuals, right? That's what we did when I went to Binghamton University for my undergraduate career. And living up there, it was, okay, we're moving off campus. Everyone's going to rent a room in this house. And this is how we were going to be able to financially do for ourselves to live at home. but we're seeing a lot of that here in New York City. And it's not for college, it's for long term. We have folk that are pairing up families within these rooms, and they're charging like $1,200, $1,300 for a room, and that's even on the low end. Some people who, when we are in certain chats, find $1,300 for a room. They'll jump at it, and it probably will be off the market within the next few days. And so we have to be able to have a conversation around how are people affording their mortgages, because everyone is not, these millionaires that are just warehousing rooms. Some of them are, Nana's house, who she doesn't want to have to sell, but she has this apartment that's available and wanting to be able to rent it out. And a lot of it too is we have people who are now starting families and looking to be able to stay connected in the community that they were born and raised in, like myself, and now figuring out where is my place and where is my space. And we've already seen the mass exodus of African American families back down south. How do we slow that and give more incentives that we actually have a place here? We are thriving in politics more than we've seen at all in our history, really, in New York State. We have a Black man as the head of the New York State Assembly. We have a Black woman as the head of the New York State Senate, right? When you continue to go up and look at our Attorney General, look at our Lieutenant Governor, and then still, when we look at our communities, there's still some changes and more things that can make us have a better quality of life. And that's what I'm interested in. Quality of life.
So Isis, I wanted to ask you, how do you plan on working about the crime? Because the crime rate is so high right now that they just getting ridiculous. They slicing women's legs going up the train steps and stuff. It's just out of control. Do you have a plan that you want to work with the police department or the community on, how we can, bring down the crime some?
Well, I will say this. I'm not afraid to say when I don't know something. And what I don't know is that, let me rephrase that. What I do know is that it's going to take a community approach to be able to address crime in our communities, and especially crime in regards to the MTA, right? We have a lot of cases when it comes to mental illness, and we cannot separate that from homelessness completely. We have to be able to address that. Some folk, whether homeless or housed, have issues that need to be addressed on a holistic basis. Part two is we have to be able to fund our cure violence organizations that are already doing great work in our community of stopping a lot of crimes that already just don't get reported, right? These are organizations that we've seen that when we're in the middle of summertime, they'll throw additional resources if there's a mass shooting, or they'll throw additional resources when they realize that certain police and community interactions are becoming newsworthy. But throughout the rest of the year, these are organizations that are trying to figure out how are they going to pay their staff. In that comes upskilling of the workforce. For so many of them, there are also mentorship programs, there are workforce development programs, and we have to be able to ensure that they have the resources and are connected in with that. And then I will mention a place that's very soft in my heart is for children that are between the ages of 13 and 18 years old. And the reason it's so near and dear to my heart is because we don't see the after school programming in the communities for that age group. A lot of times it's almost like left to their own demise. You have a generation of people who's scared to talk to the young people. And then you have the young people that's like, you guys aren't listening to what I'm saying and you aren't valuing my opinion. So being able to work with organizations, working with houses of worship, working with the people who are already doing the work and have the spaces. What I've noticed in our district is we have 173,000 people in District 41, yet in some of the areas really on all of the borders of the district, there isn't a community center. There isn't a senior program. And what you begin to wonder is, why is that? And I'm looking to be able to ensure that everyone in District 41 feels the love and the resources of having good representation. And it isn't something that's only focused at the core.
Absolutely.
And another problem, Isis, too, I want you to touch on is that the hunger. When I see people worrying about, Do they have enough food, to feed their family? They standing on these long lines now. I mean, I never thought I would see anything like that before, because I mean, I don't understand how a place like New York people could be hungry, or anywhere. I mean, I know you don't have money. There's been plenty of times I don't have money coming up and everything, but we have never had the opportunity to be hungry, because there was always somewhere you could get
Something.
food. Food was available. You could go to your neighbor's house and they'll feed you or whatever. But for it to have become such a crisis now is unbelievable to me, particularly when it comes to food. As much food as New York throws away.
The price of food. Look at the price of food alone.
What?
I mean, you can't afford to live here. To live here.
I'm getting a farm. I'm leaving New York and I'm getting a farm, because this is dumb.
But just to add the fact that Isis said that people are relocating out of New York, right? I'll add to that as well. People are relocating out of the country. They're literally leaving out of the country because their money value here is much.
It's not.
You work for years, you retire, you want to be able to live comfortably, right? And buy food and pay your bills and not struggle too much. And you just can't afford it. And sometimes in these other states, even down south, maybe not as fast as the Northeast, but they're becoming, expensive as well, because people are now on limited budgets.
I completely agree with you. And it's sad when you even have, or you hear it from the food pantry. Sometimes not the food pantry, they're like, we're out of food by the middle of the week. We're feeding 10,000 families, even like the Campaign Against Hunger, feeding over 10,000 families weekly, yet still having to figure out how are they going to make payroll and how are they going to be able to bring down these food resources. And they aren't just dealing with the issues of our community, but really a lot of Brooklyn, right? So they're doing deliveries, they're connecting with students at school who might seem like at risk of being food insecure, and providing food for them and the family, right? Because that's the big thing.
Right. Okay, Isis, I'm gonna have to interrupt you right here. You have a couple of minutes. You can stay for our after show.
Yeah.
For a couple of minutes. So we're gonna wrap up right here for the first part of our show. We're gonna come back with our after show with Miss Isis McIntosh Green, and she'll tell us a little more about what she's going to do for District 41. So we want to thank you for watching today, and remember that you can always see us on Saturdays at 5:30 on Brick and 2:30 on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. You can go to Facebook and YouTube and watch us. So we want to thank you for this part of the show. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Isis. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Would you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Faith Art Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. Keeping it real.
We are back for our after show. Thank you for sticking around, Miss Isis. We was talking about, people being hungry, people moving out of the country or whatever. But the hunger situation is what really, really bothers me. I mean, I know if you have to move out of the state, then you move. If you have to move out of the country, but in the meantime, while you're here, I don't feel like people should have to suffer, particularly trying to feed their children or whatever. And that something needs to be put in place to make sure that the people have somewhere to go to get the food, or use some kind of preparation made for them to get the extra money that they need to buy food and stuff with. So it just seems like it's a cycle that just keeps repeating itself. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what do you see happening in the future of, even people in your own district might be going through this?
So people in the district are definitely going through this. Right now, we have to be able to have a strong voice in City Hall that's going to prioritize the needs of District 41 residents, which of course includes the communities of Brownsville, Ocean Hill, Bed-Stuy, East Flatbush, and Crown Heights. What we're seeing right now is, thankfully, even on the state level, they're making great strides to be able to raise the minimum wage over the next 4 years. But what does that do for the poverty level? How can the federal government keep up to ensure that people that are now making too much money to be considered for programs like SNAP or EBT actually are still able to qualify for a number of these food resources? It's with inflation, we're keeping up just to be able to pay certain bills, and then you still are every 2 weeks wondering and almost making decisions of, do I buy the flour, do I buy the meat, or can I stretch this a little further? Do I eat out? And sometimes, I don't know, the amount of money I thought I needed years ago, being able to raise a family with a family of 4 at $30,000 today, it's I won't say it's impossible because people are doing it, but if we're paying into this system, how do we redistribute the wealth to allow for us to have a better quality of life?
Well,
I think. Okay, go ahead, Vanessa.
No, well, since you're talking about redistribute wealth, I'm a big legacy wealth builder, so that's a whole other topic. But it's doable, right? For what the limited resources we have, it's really with planning, and parents need to really they really need to get a financial education. A lot of them lack the financial education in terms of how they can make their money last. Sometimes they're not on a budget. They're recklessly spending money. They don't really know how to really differentiate a want versus a need. They don't focus on these things. They live in day by day, waiting for the next check to come in. And a lot of things that they're lacking is a financial education. And I think that would be one of the tools that would be strategically put out there so they could at least have an idea to see where their money is going, how they can make more money, how they can make the money with you. And you'll be surprised. A financial education is what's needed. So how can we really be able to give that back to the community so they can therefore live that legacy and build that generational wealth over time?
I would like to say raising 4 kids on $30,000, whether you got a financial plan or not, is impossible. They get like $500 a week.
Well, you can't really say it's impossible. It all depends on you can't live on $30,000 a week and want to live in a $2,000 apartment.
I mean, but that's all that's in Bed-Stuy.
But sometimes, but sometimes people still have to save. People can build wealth in other ways. People don't have insurance. People don't have a legacy mindset. People just live in a generational debt, and I get it. It's generational debt. If you could, some people just complacent, are paying their rent, putting food on the table, and some things are doable if it would. I won't say that it's going to be the end all be all, but it can release some of the stress and give them to change their mindset of how they look at money.
But for some people, that's all they know, right? So after you have operated in a spirit of lack for so long, when you actually do get that abundance, what do you do with it, right? So even for a lot of our young people who are getting those advanced degrees and going into jobs making over $60,000, then you start to wonder, okay, if they never had the financial literacy training and education, then of course they're going to purchase what attracts them and live in that cycle of debt, when really we are being burdened by student loan debt that was supposed to be canceled. That's not, right? We were promised housing stock that, of course, now it just doesn't seem like it's keeping up with the pace of people here. And so a lot of young professionals are even now leaving the state, not just to go to college, but to say that, there's really no place for me here. And so how do we continue to incentivize our talent to stay within the communities? And I think we do that at the high school level.
Right. So that's why when I speak about financial education, I'm not just talking about necessarily now. I'm talking about many moons ago when the kids are in school, because, financial education is taken out of school because, as far as I'm concerned, the Board of Ed feels they're not teaching thinkers, they're teaching workers. So you only know what you know. And if you want to hide something for anyone, you put it in a book, because they're banking on people not reading, not asking questions, not following up, and not getting the knowledge that's needed to survive. Listen, granted, you cannot have rich people without poor people. And I understand that. But when you look at the demographics of who is affecting is the Black and brown community that's continuously living in debt.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that a lot of things have changed throughout the years, but the school system has not. From the time that first Black student made that one high school integrated, the school system has never changed at all in any way, shape, or form. So they're not trying to help us be better. They're not trying to. First of all, I'm gonna tell you right now, school don't teach you nothing that you can use. Anything that I've learned and used, I've learned as an adult or through trial and error. School is daycare for kids. Period.
But then Allison too. I'm thinking like some of this stuff, like Vanessa was saying, is that even though that might have happened in the past, that parents are loaded down, they don't have time. I know they have to work. We all had to work. We all had to take care of our kids where we work. Some of us were single parents raising our kids and stuff like that. But I still feel that even now, you can start educating yourself about different things. And then you have to also ask other people too, what do you need to do? What do I need to do? How do I advance myself? Because I mean, you can learn. You might not be making a whole lot of money, but you can learn how to do certain things. I mean, like if you get in a tight, right? Now, what do we used to? What your grandparents and my parents them used to do when they got in a tight? They would. My aunt would bake cakes and sell cakes or whatever. They would do what they had to do. They didn't just.
They had that
back
entrepreneurial spirit
about I don't have any money. I don't have no money for this. You would figure out a way, because even cooking now, don't tell me you can't put on a pot of beans with some ham hock salmon and make a pan of cornbread and make a whole meal out of it. But you have to do something to help save money rather than going out there taking your money, going out to eat, buying steak when you know you can't afford to buy steak or whatever. You have to sit and figure out, okay, how am I going to make this work? If I don't have all the money that I need. Because we have to start educating ourselves how to take care of ourselves and our children. I mean, it's just like people I see, and I know everybody can't afford life insurance, but like a lot of people walking around with no life insurance. I just had an incident with one of my friends. The friend died, no life insurance or whatever. And I mean, and they working, had good jobs, making good money, but not educated to say, okay, I need to take out a life insurance policy. This is what I'm saying.
Right.
We have to start educating ourselves on things that we need and things that we have to do and stuff like that. That's all I'm saying.
And stop leaving the burden to the family.
You
leave the burden to the family that's already destitute, right? And struggling, and they want to do the right things if a loved one passed away, but they can't afford it. So why is it everybody else's problem except yours to take care of the things that you are here to take care of?
Because I'm dead now. I'm dead now.
And I also think in the community, you can have programs in the community where people can start doing workshops and teaching people how to do their finances and stuff, along with their kids. Bring the kids along with you so they learn how to save their money and do things that they need to do as a community. We need to put this in the community. Right. Say you pick a day out of the week that we're going to have this workshop. Everybody comes together, and you have someone that teaches. We have to start doing stuff. We have to start doing stuff like that in the community. In the community, yeah. Well,
I think that's important.
Isis, is there anything else that you would like for your community to know that you're going to do besides get out and vote on the 27th?
Because we are also in your community.
I was going to say that early voting has actually began. And it started on Saturday, June 17th, and it's going to be 25th. Tomorrow is actually one of the later days where the polls are open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. There are a number of crises that are affecting our community, from health crises with women with fibroids. I've suffered with it. People in my family have suffered with it. Also being able, when you go to the doctor and speaking to your OBGYN, what happens when they recommend that you need a hysterectomy, right? There are certain health crisis issues, even regarding asthma and respiratory issues, that were exacerbated in our communities, even after the air quality issues. So my biggest thing that I'll leave with you all is there are a number of crises that we need to address, and District 41 needs a strong voice who is going to prioritize our needs in City Hall. And so when you go out and vote, let's stop the crisis and vote Isis McIntosh Green. Thank you.
All right, you heard it from the candidate herself.
I like that. Hey.
Get out and vote on June 27th. Matter of fact, like she said, it's early voting now, so find out what poll you can go to for early voting. But on June 27th, make sure you get out to vote for Isis McIntosh Green, because she's going to turn District 41 around, and she can't do it by herself without your vote. So remember, thank you again for joining us tonight, and always, we'll see you next time.